What is good, everybody? My name is JJ. Welcome back to Retro Rewire. We got another episode, and it's definitely been a minute since I last published an episode, just because I've been super busy, and a lot of my free time has gone to game hunting. As a matter of fact, I've been averaging about 1 to 2 stores per day, as well as curating the collection. I think I've sold like 20 consoles in the last month and a half, and also what's the other? Playing video games. That's the most important thing. I've been playing a lot of video games, and I'm having a great time playing Splatterhouse on the old Famicom. That's a great game. And apart from that, I've been acquiring new equipment to make the workflow for the YouTube channel a lot easier. And the big thing is I got a laptop, so when I travel for work, I can take that on with me and do editing on my spare time. And there's definitely going to be a lot different content on the channel. Definitely a lot of game hunting, but I'm gonna do a few different types of episodes, like more unboxings. Just kind of talking about the state of Japanese gaming, kind of more vloggy type of videos. So definitely stay tuned for that. But today is going to be all about the grand reopening of the hard off and off house combo in Kuki, Saitama, Japan. Now, I believe they closed the store in 2020, but because of the pandemic, there was a lot of delays, but they finally got the new building up. And apparently on day one, they had about 300 people in line waiting to get inside. And at the height of the day, it was about a 3-hour wait time just to check out. Now on day two, it wasn't as crazy. That's the actual day that I went, on the 20th of January. But let me tell you, it was definitely busy, and I had to park across the street. And well, you're gonna see in the video. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with the cookies and cream right at the showcase. So let's get it underway. So let's get it started on the second shelf. Now this Zelda GBA, a thing of absolute beauty. What do you guys think of the price there? And then we have a Game Gear Micro, the red one, and I do like this price. I do agree with that. $6,000 before sales tax. And then the Wonder Mega, the Victor branded one, for 110,000 yen. This is definitely one of the standout pieces of hardware in this case, as well as in the entire store. I'm more of a fan of the Mark II edition, but that thing is a thing of beauty. And then an assortment of Nintendo handhelds. And then down below we have the Neo Geo, the Merry Christmas edition, which I believe has more games. The number of games is more than what's in the International and the Standard edition. And then here we have another great piece of kit, which is the Game Gear Magic Knight Ray Earth edition, the pink PS2, and the red Cinnabar PS2. I picked one of these up in Akihabara for 10,000 yen. Super happy to have that in the collection. And then we have the one-piece PS3 Slim. And it's been a while since I've seen one of these out here in the Saitama area, so definitely nice to see that. And then we have an assortment of PlayStations. We got a few PS4s and the Pikachu N64 controller. All right, y'all, what do you think? That was the first showcase. Now, for me personally, the red Game Gear Micro, that was super tempting, and that thing looked pretty clean. We also have the Wonder Mega Victor. Now, I definitely would love to add one of these to the collection, but I would rather have the Mark II. And with that price, I can't afford something like that at the moment. And then we also have the beautiful red Cinnabar PS2 Slim. I recently picked one up. As a matter of fact, it's right there. I'm looking at it. I got it at World Mobile in Akihabara for a cool 10,000 yen. So definitely don't discount Akiba, the old capital, as there's still a lot of great deals to be had. Now, if you look here on the floor, I have a number of consoles. I'm redoing the game room, and I have to get rid of one of these because I have just too much stuff. And I decided to get rid of a Sega Mega Drive. This is an 89 vintage, complete with its matching manual. I took it down to the shop. As a matter of fact, here I am pulling it out of the bag, and they gave me 5,000 yen. And I thought that was a pretty good price, because if I sell it on a place like Mercari, after the 10%, the shipping fees, it's going to be about that much. And this is a quick turnaround. So I was happy with that. So armed with that 5,000 yen, let's take a look and see what kind of things I'm going to pick up, because believe me, there's a lot of great stuff coming up. I want a PS5. In fact, look at all the PS5s that they have here on the top shelf. And the pricing on some of these isn't actually too bad, but I'm going to hold out. I want to get the Slim edition. And it'll happen all in due time. And for every PlayStation 5, they had about 10 Nintendo Switches. So much Switch. So if you're definitely after the Switch, this could be a place to, put on your radar. Now, the pricing, I haven't really been keeping up with the Switch prices, but 35,200 yen for the Tears of the Kingdom edition, and that doesn't seem all that bad, but I don't know how demand for that particular machine, for that console is at the moment. And then they had the Switch lights. And then here's something that I normally don't show, which is all the other electronics. We got some mini disc players, and I love collecting all sorts of audio components as well as cameras. In fact, I bought a new camera, which is what I'm using for this episode. I still have my other camera, but if you like cameras, they have so many cameras here, and I'm definitely going to show more that they had up in the junk section. But this is definitely a place to keep on your radar for cameras. Anyhow, here I am in full showcase stance. In fact, the guy in the back is as well. Make sure to have good technique and form so you don't hurt your back. Let's have a closer look at what they have inside here. Now, they have Dragon Spirit for 3,300 yen. Now, I recently picked that one up for about 2,000 yen and some change, as well as the soundtrack, and it ended up being as much as what they have it for here. But the one thing that I do want to say, and feel free to pause, by the way, to take a look at these prices, but one thing that I do want to say is be careful, because, you know, bouncing from each store, make sure to have your route planned, because transportation in Japan can get very, very expensive, whether you're taking the train, whether you're using a car, taking a taxi. It adds up really quick, and that could make it seem, well, you know, what you might think you might be getting a good deal will definitely go away with all the transportation costs. So definitely be careful out there. But here we have our Super Famicom titles, and this is a system that in the last 6 months, you know, I got rid of all my loose cards, and I built up a nice little collection of complete in-box titles, and I'm super happy with how it's going. Now, Super Paying, that's definitely one that I would like to add, but at 11,000, you know, it's definitely not a super high priority, and if it doesn't make it into the collection, that's definitely okay. And then we have 5,600 for Final Fight, which is, I mean, I recently picked up my copy about a month ago for 1,650, so that's definitely a little bit higher priced. But anyhow, let's see what they do have on hand here. And here for 16,500 yen, they have the memory cassette, which that's kind of cool. They have the Phalanx, you know, they have Phalanx here for 66,000 yen. It's definitely cheaper in Akiba. And then next to that, look at this gnarly cover art here. I feel like that's by a famous manga artist, but I really don't know the name, and I don't really know the title, but 2,750 or 500, that's definitely a pricey one. And then in the back, we have some Goemon, we have Gradius, and Gradius is coming in at 4,400 yen. I recently picked it up in Akihabara for under 3,000. And then there's a Fire Emblem for the same price for 4,400. So definitely, again, don't discount Akihabara, as there's still some decent deals to be had. And you can hit up quite a few shops without having, you know, just on foot when you're in Akiba. But here we have Kirby's Dreamland for 3,300 yen. And that's actually a pretty good price, I must say. And that's a great game at that. And then this is a pretty cool cover art there. Something Revenge, Custer's Revenge, I'm not really sure. And then they have Mappy there for 5,500, which I do enjoy that game, and that's as probably as retro as it gets for me. I think that's a 1983 vintage, and they have another copy there for 4,400 next to Ultima, which has some gnarly cover art. Now, on the subject of Game Boy Advance, I'm definitely going to be toning it down, and I think I'm going to be trimming down my collection quite a bit. I do enjoy the system, but space is an issue, and I want to really focus on the 16-bit consoles. But here we have Rockman Dash for 11,000 in the box. I definitely prefer the PS1 version, and then we have Goemon for 3,300. So not too bad there for the N64 selection in the case. We have Garou Special for 4,400. It's got a few notes there. And then off in this little corner, they have a few PC titles, and they're all roughly, the average price here is going to be about 5,000 yen. But although, you know, not too bad of an offering here at this showcase, although I didn't pick up anything. But we're going to keep it moving and see what else we find. All right, y'all. So we saw a few games in the showcase, and now we're going to be seeing the hardware. Now, we did see the PS5 and the Switch stuff, which, you know, there was quite a bit of Switch. But this is one of the key areas of a store, and something that I look for is quantity. And when you couple that with variety, then you definitely have a winner. So let's see what they have for the console offerings. And let me tell you, there's definitely a lot to see here. So kick back and let's continue the show. look at this beauty, an FM Towns Marty, 44,000 yen. The CD unit and then the little disc drive unit are not working. And I recently picked one up, but I paid 55,000 yen and definitely expect a video on that. And you know, it was a little bit, you always get that feeling when you go to another store and you see something that you just bought for a lower price, but that's definitely a part of the game. And that's just how the cookie is going to crumble, or the biscuit, depending on what part of the world you're from. But here we are, we're making our way into like there it is again. I just had to show it one more time. That one just stung a little bit, but you know, we're going to move on here. 66,000 for a Duo RX. That's definitely less expensive in Akiba, and you can get one with the box for about that price. We got the V Saturn here for 27,500, but it was definitely nice to see those other PC engines, and the hardware just keeps going on. And I want to say the only thing that I think they didn't have was like the PC Engine GT, but my goodness, just seeing all this hardware is definitely awesome. And as for me, as a game hunter, game collector, this is definitely a sight to behold. And if you see the prices here, they have like multiple Mega Drives, multiple Saturns, and there's definitely like a wide margin within the prices themselves. Like, you know, 8,800 for the top loader. The one next to it's coming in at 11,000, and then another one for 8,000 before sales tax. So there's definitely going to be options. And, you know, if you find yourself out here in Kuki, Saitama, definitely hit these guys up, because as you can see, lots of Super Famicom. They even have one in the case, the plastic case. And then we have N64, GameCube, so a little bit of everything. And I imagine that they have even more in the back. And I think actually, now that I think about it, I don't think that they had the AES, the Neo Geo, but you know what? That's okay, because I absolutely love seeing all this hardware. All right, y'all, admit it. There was a lot of hardware there, a lot of great stuff to see, a lot of teasing going on. And, you know, for some of you right away, it's too expensive. And you know what? That's okay, because there's still plenty of other shops that might have things at a less, at a lower cost. But nonetheless, it was a great showing of hardware. And now we're going to make our way into the software. Now, this is where my pickups really start coming into play. And the game aisle was also, I want to say it was good. Not as good as the hardware, just because it's just great seeing all that hardware. But anyhow, let's continue the show here. And you know, before I forget, I do want to cover these little Game & Watch handhelds, all these little, I guess these, for lack of a better word, primitive handhelds. Not the Wonder Swan, mind you, for 5,500, but you know, some of you are collecting these things, and they had quite the assortment here, which is always nice to see. Now, I know almost next to nothing, you know, in regard to their pricing, their history, and the games itself. But, you know, I know some of these are highly collectible, like this Donkey Kong one for 14,300 and in the box. And then they also have this Mickey Mouse one, which seems also pretty cool. But now here we are with the software. And I have to admit, you know, when I was looking through this specific showcase here, there wasn't anything that was really calling out to my attention. As you can see, there's a lot of handheld stuff, and if you're a collector of all things handheld, then there's probably going to be something here that will catch your eye. Now, Metroid there for the disc system, that was definitely something that I recently picked up, and it's always nice to see that title again. And here, 29,700 yen for Metroid 2. I recently sold the loose cart because I'm like a maniac. I'm trying to get everything complete in box, but after seeing that price, I'm probably gonna source another a loose copy of that game, because that's definitely super high price. And then here we have Gauntlet Legends for 13,200 on the old N64, and then Dracula XX for the Super Famicom, 8,800 yen. And that one has definitely, at least at this location, is going to be higher price than what I'm used to seeing at. Usually it hovers around 6,000 yen, and I believe that's still the case if you're game hunting online, like on Mercari. That's definitely going to be a far less expensive option. And then here we have Rockman and Bass for the Wonder Swan coming in at 5,000 before sales tax. And then that we're going to take a look at some handheld games here complete in the box. Well, I think most of these are complete. And again, there's nothing really that caught my attention personally. I'm really focusing on the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, those titles. And I want to say in the last 4 months, I've definitely have done some damage in regard to building that collection up. But there are some interesting titles here, like this Cult Master Ultraman for $16.50. And that was a pretty cool cover, I have to admit. And then here they have their Game Boy Advance. And as you saw there really quickly, there's definitely a lot of people down the aisle. So that definitely was challenging to film. But we're going to do our best here, and we're going to continue on. Now we're going to get into a lot of the loose stuff. Street Fighter 2 for the PC Engine. And then we have our disc system in manuals. And then this was not too bad of a price here. Super Mario Bros. 2 and then Doki Doki Panic for $27.50. Unfortunately, this one was missing like the bigger casing and the manual. And then speaking of manuals, I ended up picking up this Super Mario Bros. Manual for 330 yen, and that's going to complete my copy that I picked up in Nagoya at the book off. So that was pretty cool, especially considering that the condition of that manual was fairly clean. And then here are the loose carts, and we're just going to barely look at this quickly rather. But 500 yen before sales tax there for The Legend of Zelda, which is a pretty good price. These are the only Mega Drive titles that they had, and nothing particularly eye-catching there. And as you can see down below, they have a few boxed games, and then up top they have a lot of loose carts. We have Mega Man 2 here for 2,200 yen, which isn't too bad. Although unfortunately that one, as you can see, had a little bit of staining. And then Part 5 there for 1,000 yen and before sales tax. And then they had Part 4 and another copy of 5, and then Kirby's Dream Land for 1,000 yen before sales tax. So that's definitely. I would say that's some pretty good pricing. And then here is one that I've been looking for ages. We are talking about Capcom versus SNK 2 EO for the GameCube. I definitely picked this one up, and that one's becoming a little bit more uncommon to find. And the last time I saw it, I think it was upwards of 6,000 yen. So, seeing it at that price, that's a no-brainer for me, as I love collecting all those 2D Capcom fighting games. And that one being one of the only ones for the GameCube, that's definitely a no-brainer for me. But here we are, we have some Sega Saturn titles, which the Sega Saturn titles were a little bit sad, but the PC Engine selection was surprisingly decent. Here we have the Deep Blue. I believe this is like a shooter, and I don't know much about this one, but they had 2 copies, and that one was coming in at 3,300 yen. And then here's the other one for 1,000 yen less. Looks like there's a little bit of sun fading. And then we have Garo Special for 3,300 yen, and that's going to require the arcade card. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the Saturn offerings. Again, it's a little bit sad, at least for me personally. And here we have Steam Gear MASH, unfortunately missing the manual, but 4,400. And that's a title that I wanted way back like in the late 90s, but unfortunately it was a little bit hard to get, especially where I lived in America. But R-Type 2 there for 4,400 yen. That's another great price for this one. For that title, you can expect to pay about 5,800 in Akihabara, so that's a pretty good deal. And then here we have In the Hunt, the namesake of the series, for 6,600 yen. If this had the Obi card, I would have definitely picked this bad boy up, but unfortunately it didn't. I do have the PS1 copy, so there's definitely no hurry in getting the Saturn version. But it's a shame, because I do definitely want to add the Saturn port to the collection. And then this is my next pickup, which is Garo 2 for 1,000. I have an arcade card, and that finally allowed me to test it to make sure that everything is working okay, and I'm happy to report that everything is working and running perfectly. We have Gunhead there for 8,000 yen. So a lot of great shooters here for the PC Engine. And again, pricing, I'm going to leave that up to you guys, but in regard to the selection, it's not actually too bad, all things considering. But World Heroes 2, 4,950. This one kind of interests me, and that might be my next pickup. And speaking of pickups, I got this one, Forgotten Worlds. And I was debating whether to get this one or the Sega Mega Drive one, and I definitely went with the PC Engine, as it seems a little bit more detailed, although the Mega Drive version has a little bit extra effects that are lacking here in the PC Engine port. But I'm definitely happy with that pickup. And here we're just making our way to see what else they have. We got some Ranma 1/2. And this one, Riot Zone, 5,500 yen. That's not actually too bad of a price. You can definitely expect to pay more in Akiba. And I beat that game, and I remember selling my copy just because I wasn't really impressed with the game as a whole. But 22,000 or 22,000 yen here for Dracula X, and I can't believe that's not behind the glass. That's crazy. But definitely that was a nice surprise. And then we have Samurai Spirits RPG, Bariarm, and then the Sega Classics, as I try to pull it out here for 1,100 yen. And then we have G Darius. Now this is just a little printout cover, and I believe this was the copy that was at Kurihashi, but here we are just taking a peek at everybody's little basket. And not too bad of a selection. Look at this. This guy's taking the Saturn for 5,500 yen. So he has good taste in my opinion. And we'll take a look at his basket a little bit later, but here we have the Belgian Lucky Luke. And this one is a little bit rare. This one is definitely one that I would think would have been behind the glass. And that one was a little bit tempting, but that would have been more because of its rarity than what I would than actually wanting to play it. So that one definitely went back on the shelf. But definitely a nice surprise. And then here we have Mansion of the Hidden Souls for 550 yen on the Mega CD. And then 2 copies of Marvel vs. Capcom, which, you know, on the PlayStation, it is what it is. And then we have a Rockman 8. This is actually my preferred version of Rockman, although the Saturn one is definitely more detailed. And Toshinden. This was my other pickup with the spine card there. I've been looking for that one for quite some time, so that was definitely another great score for me. And then we have Biohazard 3 for 800 yen. And then we have this Shadow Struggle business. I don't know too much about it, but it looks like it's a fighting game, maybe a fighting like where you create like your own moveset and type of deal. I don't know. And then here we have like this Teletubbies looking game. Pretty interesting. Haven't seen that one before. And they had PSP stuff. You know, we have Rockman X, Maverick Hunter. That's a great title on the PSP. And then they also had Street Fighter 03, an excellent port for 2750. This one is highly recommended. And then Dynamite Deca there on the old PS2 for 7150. And what is this? Sonic Heroes coming in at 1650. I don't know too much about that title. But overall, you know, they had everything, you know, Wii, Wii U, N64, PS2, as you see here. And we're just going to pan the camera here so you guys can get like a better idea of the amount of games that they have. You know, a lot of PS3, PS4, PS5, DS, 3DS, and Switch. Definitely a lot of titles there, but it was getting a little bit busy. Time was running thin, and I had to keep the show moving. And then here we are. We're going to take another peek at the basket, and it's growing. So you better head down here soon because the games are definitely getting picked. Anyhow, let's continue on. All right, y'all, that was the game aisle. Now, because the store was so busy, I only showed a small portion. And as you saw, as I panned the camera, there was definitely some Switch, PS4, PS5, all sorts of other consoles, and, you know, DS, 3DS. And I want to say that I'll definitely be returning to this store because it's a high volume store. And those stores constantly have inventory coming in and out, and that's usually a good indicator. So I hope in the future I see more Sega Saturn titles, more PC Engine goodness, and of course PlayStation 1. But that was the junk section. That was the junk section is where we're heading next. That was the game aisle. And the junk section is actually the trademark, the signature of Hard Off, and that's where we're going to go next. We're going to take a look at a few machines, consoles, as well as the showcase, and then at the very end, I'll show a little bit of footage of like their audio components, like their audio gear that they're selling, some toys, as well as more cameras. So stick around if those things interest you. So let's go ahead and dive in deep into the junk section. And here we go, lo and behold, the junk section. Now there's going to be quite a few people here, but anyhow, right away we have the Sega Mega Drive here, and this is coming in at about 3,000 yen, maybe a little bit more. And I suspect that a lot of the consoles that they have here came from their other locations. Now this is a franchise store, and I think it's the flagship store under this group, and I think they have about between 4 and 6 locations, because I could have sworn I've seen some of these consoles at the at the other locations. That's how familiar I am with a lot of the hard offs in this area. But it's great to see all this junk, And in this particular bin, they have all the Virtua Fighters. Unfortunately, they're all missing the manual. But if you're just looking to play, these are coming in at 110 yen. And I would say that's about like the average price for these games. They were just crazily mass produced and great games. In fact, Virtua Fighter 2 is what convinced me to get a Saturn over a PS1 way back in the day. And speaking of PS1, look at that beautiful stack there. And quite a few of those are going to work. Believe me, I get them from the stacks all the time. And then we have some PS3s. Now, the gray ones in the middle are original 40 gig models. Here's the white one, but those gray ones are limited edition models for Metal Gear Solid 4. In fact, let me pull one out so you can see here. And apart from the color, all it has is this lettering here, and there is no other indicator. There's no other design or decal on there. So I think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity, but it is a nice color. And if you know how to repair these, I'm sure they're not working, because they're actually really inexpensive, about 3,000 yen. But if you know how to repair those, that could be a great repair project. But anyhow, let's keep making our way into the junk section. Here we have a few handhelds, mostly of the Nintendo variety, DS, DSi, and this particular DS Lite, I actually picked that one up and I got it for a little bit less out in Chiba. A video will be coming on that soon. And guys, I could have spent quite a bit of time here, but as you can see here, people were just kind of piling in, and it was definitely fun to be in a location with this many people. But here we go, we have the testing station, and we're gonna put this thing, I guess forgive the pun, but we're gonna put it to the test. As you can see, they have batteries, chargers, they got a TV, all sorts of everything you need to test the equipment. And this is gonna make our, we're gonna make our way into the junk case. Here's the Famicom. And make sure you check all parts of the store, because sometimes some of these games end up in locations that you don't expect. But there we have Zelda on the disc system. We have a Splatterhouse coming in at 5,500 yen for the PC Engine. And then some DualShock 4 action. And there's a lot of stuff behind the way too. So when you're here, when you find yourself at one of these locations, make sure to take your time, because we have two Game Boy DMGs here, but there's one in the back. And the one in the back is actually the one that I pick up, and that's the one that I will show some footage of me, testing it with the batteries and whatnot. But a lot of these handhelds, it's mostly Nintendo, which is a testament to how dominant they were, not just in Japan, but the world over. But as you can see, some pretty good prices. And, all you have to do is ask, you just point, and they'll bring it out. They'll ask you if you want to test it. And if they don't, you can have the translator app, do what you have to do. And, it's great. Like, we have this PlayStation Vita here for 8,250. And apparently there's some discoloration to the screen. Now, I released a short of a PlayStation Vita that I picked up for 5,000 yen at a different hard off. Well, first of all, look at this PSX, 13,200 yen. It is working. They just haven't tested the functionality to record television programming, whatever you call that. I don't even know. I totally forgot the name, drawing a blank. And then here's a Duo for 13,200, same price. But kind of going back to what I was saying, I picked up a Vita. The screen was a little bit discolored, but it was barely noticeable. And then here we have a PC Engine, and the price is coming in at 3,000, almost 4,000 yen. It is missing its power switch, but perhaps those can be 3D printed if you have access to that. And here's a WonderSwan. But a lot of great hardware in here, and I think there's an MSX in the back there. An MSX by National. So that's definitely cool to see. And then, going back to the Game Boy. Now, the reason why I wanted to test the one in the back is because it includes the box, its original manual, and I want something a little bit more complete for the DMG. So I asked for some help. I got the batteries there. And unfortunately, the screen was showing a little bit of lines, but I still picked it up because I just got to clean it, recap it, and there's a high chance that is going to go away. In fact, see, some of those lines already went away just from having it on. And usually that's an indicator of bad capacitors. And super happy with that pickup, and definitely going to keep building up that Game Boy library. But guys, that was the junk section. Now we're going to head back to old HQ. All right, y'all. So that was the junk section. I picked up the Game Boy. I got a few games. Overall, I would say that this was a successful game hunt, and I'll definitely cover this store once again in the future, maybe down the line, maybe in about like 6 months, but definitely expect more from this location. And we're going to end things, or I'll end things by showing a little bit of audio components, some cameras, and some toys, just a little bit of clips, but that's going to be it for me, and I'll catch you on the next one. Ciao.
memory とメモリーのコミュニケーションまた会いに行くよ